Good morning and welcome, Sue. We are delighted to have you here on our YouTube channel. How's life with you?
Well, Deirdre, good morning and hello to you. I'm delighted to be here too. Life is good, busy, as always, but busy in a very productive way, which is the best way to be busy.
Excellent. And you know, like we have, our paths have crossed probably during COVID was when we really connected probably more through Instagram, Facebook, all of that was going on, which we always say is a good thing that did come out of COVID because we connected with so many amazing flowery people.
Yes.
But tell me about your journey. How did you get into flowers? How did flowers come into your life? I'd love to know.
Well, I have been in flowers and floristry now for about 30 years, and I came into it as a career change, which I know a lot of people do. And I was working in a garden centre, and the garden centre took on a florist to open a floristry department. And the florist came and she was making these beautiful things. And I looked at what she was doing and I just thought, I'd like to be able to do that. And it's as simple as that, really. It was the creativity of it just caught me, and the freshness of it, and how she just reacted to what was coming in. And I thought, I'd love to be able to do that. So I went to evening classes initially just to give it a go because I'd never done anything like that before. I enjoyed the evening classes, so I took a deep breath and I enrolled at college. I was working full-time at the garden centre, and I left there and went to work part-time as a trainee florist in a very good shop, a very busy high street shop. And started there, very green behind the ears, and I learned everything at that shop. And I did all my college training, and then I went on to do my intermediate and diplomas in floristry, which have been replaced by the level 4 and level 5. And I spent 26 years as a high street florist, working in a shop, serving customers, doing funerals, doing weddings, putting out the front every morning, doing Christmas, Valentine's, Mother's Day, early starts, late finishes, cold in the winter, too hot in the summer, and washing buckets. So I have absolutely, at heart, I'm a high street florist, and I love working with
Amazing. So where are you now? So are you still working in flowers? Are you still working with flowers, retail? What are you doing now?
Well, what I'm doing now is I actually left the shop in 2018 because I also run a small publishing company with publishing books on cut flowers and cut foliage and houseplants, and I wanted to concentrate more on that. And I also work freelance and have done for a number of years for Interflora, and I write a lot of floristry articles, not just for Interflora but for other magazines as well. And I do a lot of online floristry content, so I wanted to concentrate on that. I was getting to the point where everything was getting quite sort of big and something needed to go. So I left the shop, and I'm concentrating on running my own business, running the publishing company, publishing the books, promoting the books. Still very involved in floristry through Interflora. So I go to all the big floristry shows. I go to Chelsea every year. I was at the World Cup in September in 2023.
The roving reporter.
Oh, fabulous time.
Yeah.
And
I
as
also, well as that too, I think with Chelsea, we'd be just tuned into your social media when Chelsea is on, because you really get behind the scenes in Chelsea to show.
I'm very lucky because I get to. Last year I went, or in 2023 I went for 3 days, and I'm going again in 2024 for 3 days. So I get to go to Chelsea for 3 days, and I cover not just the show itself and the floristry competitions, but we also cover Chelsea in bloom. So I have a couple of days wandering around Chelsea and Belgravia, looking at all these amazing floral installations. And the great thing is sharing it all on social media, because I'm so lucky to be able to do that. So if I can share it with people as well and share the experience. So
and you know, we're so lucky to have you doing it, because there's so many people that it's just impossible for them to get to Chelsea or to get to Belgravia to see what's going on. And you open it all up to all of us. So thanks a million for that.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
what thrills you about the flower industry? So what really gives you your warm tummy or your, you know, excitement? What thrills you about it at this stage in your career?
Joe, it's always thrilled me right from the very start, and it's the flowers. It has to be the flowers and the seasonality of flowers, particularly in the spring, when you suddenly you've got your hyacinth and your anemones and your narcissus, and you've got the mascari, and you've got these beautiful spring flowers, and you don't get them all year round, which is a treasure. And then you're coming into the summer, and all of a sudden you've got these beautiful delphiniums, and then you get your peonies, which are just glorious, and they've only got a short period, and that again is wonderful. And then you move into the autumn, and dahlias and gladioli and so on. It's just how flowers bring out that seasonality, and that has thrilled me and still does for over 30 years.
It is. And you know, it's funny because a question I know us as florists, and I'm sure you're the same, it's always been asked, is what is your favorite flower? But it really depends on the
that's
time
a difficult
year,
one.
Like, I just love tulips. I love them this time of the year. I love, even like, I've actually some daffodils on the table here. I just love spring flowers early, like at Christmas. I just think they're just, and the smell of them is just amazing.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I must admit, if I had to choose a flower, a favourite flower, I'd probably go for an anemone. And it's again, because they're so seasonal and they're so beautiful to look at. There's lovely, lovely charcoaly dark centres, and it's lovely sort of papery, velvety petals, gorgeous. And they remind me of Cornwall, which is where my family come from. So it has that association as well. That's what flowers do, don't they? They link you to places and to people.
Absolutely. And time in your lives, you know, like, you know, I would always associate freesia with my grandparents because they loved freesia. And I suppose back then it was the luxury flower, you know,
it was.
And it is sort of the old school. But when I'm particularly purple smelly freesia, it just reminds me of my grandmother so much, you know, they're real triggering. Trends. So like, you've been, as you said, 30 years in the business, you've seen lots of different trends coming and going. What are you noticing now at the moment, the trends within the industry, not just the wedding industry, but the industry as a whole?
Well, the biggest trend or move in the industry at the moment has got to be sustainability. The trend towards locally grown flowers and foliage, to not import, and to understanding where your flowers come from, and not cutting down on importing flowers. And people seem to be happier now to have flowers which have a shorter vase life because they are grown in the same country. They haven't been sort of manufactured, if that's the right word, to sort of for a maximum vase life. When I first started off in floristry, everything was carnations and chrysanthemums, and it had to last 2 weeks. Those people didn't think they got their money's worth. But now people will go for a seasonal vase of flowers that will last the weekend, and they're happier with imperfections. They're happier with sort of slightly bent stems, or that they seem to be much more relaxed around their flowers.
And I think we're seeing the same trends within vegetables as well. It's like people are going back to country markets, and they're happy with the crooked carrots and the crooked, you know, turnips and stuff like that. And likewise with flowers, people they like the natural, organic look.
They do. They like, and again, that's a lovely thing, because that goes back to the seasonality as well. Is that to have a vase of seasonal flowers is just such a beautiful thing to have in your house. And even if you only have them for 4 or 5 days, it's worth it just to be able to have them, to look at them and to love them.
Absolutely. Now, you touched on there earlier on about your publishing company. Now we know, and this was how we connected on Instagram and social media, was through your cut flower books. And we had your cut flower book for a long time before we even knew it was you that we had connected with. So you have a couple of books. So tell me about your cut flower books. I hope you have them on hand to show them off there.
Of course, I do. I have them here. I have 3 books, and what happened was I was writing features for Interflora, and they were being published in Interflora's in-house magazine that went out to all of their shops. And I wrote a series of articles on how to care and condition flowers. I did a spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And one of the people that I worked with in Flora was doing a floristry course. And when she came to her module on flower conditioning, she couldn't find any information, any sort of dedicated information about how to care and condition flowers, despite working for Flora, despite having so many books at her disposal. So she took my articles into her class and they used those as their reference, and that was the seed that sowed the idea of putting together a book on how to care and condition cut flowers. I had no idea at the time how time consuming it was going to be, but I spent 2.5 years researching the cut flower book, and I finally published it in 2011. And my husband and I decided to publish it ourselves because we wanted control over the book, because I had a very specific idea of how I wanted it to look, and because I was a florist and I knew what florists were like, and florists do not want to have pages and pages and pages of text to wade through. What they want to have is a very straightforward, simple bullet point. I need to know how to look after hyacinths. Open the book on H for hyacinths. There it all is. Thank you very much. Right, get on with my day now. Right. So we put our savings in together and we created Jago Publishing, which is our publishing company, and we paid for the print and the design and the public sort of the binding and the whole thing. And we still now handle all of our own distribution and marketing. Everything we do in-house. So Cut Flowers, the first edition came out in say 2011, and then I did its companion book Cut Foliage, which came out in, the first one came out in 2013, and then finally Houseplants came out in 2019. And this is something which is more useful. A lot of florists buy it for their shops, so when the customers buy plants.
And plants are becoming such a big thing now.
They've
really just taken off, haven't they?
Yeah. I mean, I remember sort of in the 70s, everybody had spider plants and Swiss cheese plants. And then in the 90s, nobody seemed to have plants. And then suddenly in the last 15, 20 years, house plants have become the new thing, and everybody has a house plant. I can see one behind you, and I've got some on my windowsill, and some people have invested huge amounts in their house plants, which is great.
Absolutely. So they need to learn how to look after them. So really, your plant book is probably more suitable now for public sale.
I think so. Yes, I'd like to think so. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Who do you think, and that coming on to, we say the Cut Flower book, because I know our students, we recommend it's probably one of the only books that we recommend our students to buy. But do you think that the Cut Flower book is also suitable for florists as well, or is it just for students? What's your opinion on it?
It's suitable for florists as well. A lot of florists use it. I had some lovely messages from florists who had the book when they were students and have carried the book on, and they're still using it as a florist, because I have availability in here, which is based on at the moment, based on the Dutch auctions. So I sit on a lot of wholesalers' websites and check availability of flowers and plants to make sure that it's up to date. But it also has very large colour photographs of flowers. So if you're talking to a bride, for example, you can, if the bride says, I don't know what this looks like, you can say, well, it looks like this, because I've got big pictures in here. And it does remind you, when you've got, I mean, certain flowers, you don't need to look up to condition. If you're a florist, you don't have to look up how to condition carnations and chrysanthemums or lilies or perhaps roses. But a seasonal, again, going back to seasonality, a seasonal flower might come in that you only have for a few months, once a year, and you think, what do I do with hyacinths? And you can pop that into here and you can have a quick look, and that will remind you how to look.
And the reason, Sue, I'm asking you that is because I know initially when we started to talk to you about the book, and flower shops like were on to us saying, what's that book? They were like, oh, it's only for students. And we were like, no, it's nearly like your Bible that's always sitting in the drawer. I know for us in the school, it's always sitting in the drawer, because like it'd be something like, I know for us, a still be was always an issue that we were having with. I was like, okay, get the book out. Let's just look and see exactly what do we need to do with a still be, or other flowers that have come in, or maybe somebody have rang us up and said, look, I'm after getting an order for this type of flower. We'd look it up, because as much as you know, as much as you do, you're always sort of like, oh gosh, you know. So I do think it is like a Bible for flowers. What I love about your book is not that it's waterproof, but it's definitely water resistant. The water
I don't recommend dropping it in a bucket of water, but
no,
it's designed so that you can actually wipe the cover. So if you're on a workbench and you're spraying a funeral spray and you spray it with water, you can just clean it. And it's also has internal wire binding, so you can actually fold it that way.
Lies flat,
and you can have it flat on your workbench, which is the really useful things. So it's not sort of springing up, and it's got pronunciation in it as well, which is always
know, and we use that a lot. We use the pronunciation
for me
a
too.
lot. We do. I think it's a great tip. That's it, and I just think it makes you so knowledgeable. So for anyone that's starting out in the industry and they're doing weddings, to be able to like look at a bride's inspiration and then go to the book and say, well, look, I can get this, I can get this. I can't get peonies in August. I can't get daffodils. You can get them, but they're probably not going to be at their best, you know. And really that knowledge is key for advising your customers, particularly I think your wedding couples, in your knowledge of the flowers, you know. Did you expect them to be as successful as they are, the books?
Do you know, I didn't. I started it, and a lot of people, probably I'm not alone in this, good at starting things, not quite so good at finishing things, started it and started to spend some money, because we had all the flowers photographed individually, and I was paying a photographer for that, and I was paying a company to do the design and the layout, and so it was a case of I really need to get to the end of this. And we went for a sort of a shot in the dark. We went for a print run of 5,000 copies, and I can remember saying to Brett, my husband, I'm saying, what if nobody buys them? And he said, well, we'll just have a lot of books, won't we? But fortunately people did buy them, and I was able to, because I'd been working in the industry for quite a while. I knew people who had, like, Alison Bradley at Fusion Flowers magazine, and she would advertise it and she would sell it. Claire at Floristry sells it on her website. So I was able to market it and advertise it through the industry. But no, it really took off, and I'm really grateful for that. So fantastic. I'm on the 4th edition.
So why would you change? Like, are the flowers changing, or why is there a new edition?
Well, they do change. I mean, people do ask me, is it up to date? And they don't change very rapidly, but we do go through trends and through styles. And for instance, if you look back to the sort of the 1990s and before the financial crash, if you like, the style was remember, it was very minimalist, and everybody wanted calla lilies or Zandanesia, and they just wanted one in a vase with a piece of steel grass, and they wouldn't have given you thank you for Tanacetum or sort of some very Amnivisnaja or some very sort of country style flower. They wanted them structured. There was a lot of tropical flowers about, people having heliconia, strelitzia, and that has gone those sharp edges, if you like, with the flowers and the styling has gone now. And so what I do is because I'm out and about, I'm always looking at flowers and what flowers people are using, and I go through the book every time I get towards the end of a print run. I go through the book, and I don't change a lot, but I do excuse me, change some things. And also reclassification has a part in it as well, because sometimes botanists will look at plants and they'll say, well, this flower we think used to be in like sedum, for example, has been moved from sedum to Hyliotelephum. Now nobody is ever going to call it Hyliotelephum in a million years. If you're a florist, you're going to call it sedum, but for my accuracy in the book, I needed to move it from the S to the H, because the book runs alphabetically in botanical names A to Z. Of course, it's a real headache for the designer, because all the pages have to all the pages have to move, and what was page 12 becomes page 13, and sorry, so
Yes, yes, yes,
so on
yes.
and so forth. So, but that's what I do. So I'm actually currently just starting on edition 5. So that's my
Wow.
next project.
Amazing. So, and is there another book in you, Sue? Is there another? Have you number 4 coming?
Well, I did start working on a wildflower book, but that has momentarily sort of been shelved because I've got the 3. They all, I've sort of tried and time it so they all sort of run out of print at different times, because I don't think we could actually afford to reprint all 3 of them at the same time. So you just sort of spin it, revising one, because even if I don't actually majorly change anything, every time I get towards the end of a print run, I always do a full revision and go through the whole book and pick out any typos that might have slipped through, or check flower families, all that sort of bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So the foliage book was the last one, but edition 5 is a bit of a new project. It will be out at the beginning of 2025, and what I want to do with that is reflect the growing trend and interest in UK British grown or locally grown flowers, as opposed to flowers that are coming in from overseas. So I am putting in some flowers that, because I've always before based the books on everything you can get from the Dutch auctions, because that's how everybody bought, but people are not doing that so much now. So I am putting in some flowers which you may not be able to get from the Dutch auctions, but you will be able to get from some British wholesalers, UK wholesalers, who are growing flowers themselves. And I'm also adding in an availability chart showing when the flowers are available to grow in the garden in their natural season.
Excellent. And is the conditioning different? Like when you buy in local grown flowers, is conditioning of them different to Dutch grown flowers?
I think it's the basics are always the same. The basics are, you need clean containers, you need clean water, you need to make sure that you remove all the foliage that's going to be in contact with the water, and you need to recut the stems before you put them into water. I think the difference between importing the Dutch flowers is that the Netherlands, who are an amazing floral industry, and I have nothing but huge respect for the people who grow in the Netherlands and for the Dutch wholesalers. The flowers from there, you know that they would have worked very hard to make sure they've got the most efficient flower for vase life, for longevity. With flowers that are grown locally, they don't have that background put into them. The Dutch spend a lot of time on research, on testing different types of flowers to see which ones will last the longest, which ones have the biggest flowering head, which ones the bulbs, the buds will open, which ones they won't so much, and they sort of select the best of everything. With the local grown, you really have to take a little bit more of you're not quite sure what you're going to get and how long it's going to last, which is one of the joys of it, which is also why you really need to make sure that your vase hygiene and your water is clean and your stems are cut and all the rest of it.
Excellent. That's really interesting. Like it, and I think you're right to include that in, because it is the road that, you know, here in Ireland as well, like flower farmers are definitely, and I'm sure that it'll be very similar because our weather is very similar in Ireland and England.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, sort of,
yeah,
it will be the same, but we can definitely see, unfortunately, there just isn't enough volume at the moment. So flower farmers in Ireland are, I suppose, there's more of them coming on board, but a lot of them are just growing for themselves rather than growing for the consumer industry. So that's what we need to see more of, is actually commercially growing Irish flowers local flowers. Yeah,
we do. And it is difficult.
That would be great.
I think the supply chain is an issue. What I want to do with edition 5 is have a page which just gives you seasonal flowers and the seasons when you can get them, and that will work for, well, if I say grandly, the Northern Hemisphere, but that will work across Europe and in the USA. broadly speaking. So because say if you want to buy Rebecca, this is when it actually is in flower, because people get used to having flowers all the year round, but you have to remember that flowers actually only flower at certain times of year. Nothing flowers continuously for
Yes.
12 months of the year, but we've got used to it because carnations, chrysanthemums, etc. are grown all year round. Gerber is grown all year round. Roses grown all year round. And that's always something to get across to brides sometimes when your bride comes to you in August and wants tulips, is to sort of explain that tulips are actually a spring flower. And if we could get them, they would be very, very expensive and probably not such good quality. So the idea is that if you are sitting down with a bride or with somebody who wants special flowers for a funeral or for an anniversary, and they just want to buy flowers that are actually in season, you can go to the front of the book and say, yeah, it's May, you can get
your choice.
this and this. Yeah, that's what I'm working at the moment.
Amazing. Yeah, that's going to be a huge advantage. Do many people in America buy your book? Would it be a book that would be suitable for the American market as well?
Yeah, we do sell very steadily in America. We have a customer in San Francisco, Stephen Brown, who is at the San Francisco City College. He buys books from us in bulk. And we also sell via Amazon in the States. We don't sell the houseplant book, but we sell the foliage book and the flower book. And we have a nice steady run of those go out. We do about, people tend to buy them in sets. So, and sometimes people surprise us and we check our Amazon account and we realise that somebody's bought 6 and we're like, oh, we're going to get some more books over to America, because we send them over to the States and they fulfil in the States.
Okay, right. Excellent. Yeah, because we do have a lot of American followers on here, so that's good to know that you do ship to the American market as well.
They can buy from Amazon or from us.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. And I know if they buy from you directly, all your books are signed, aren't they?
They do, yeah, they are, because Brett and I do everything ourselves. Every single web order that comes in into our computer at home, and we handle the whole thing. So we've sold over 32,000 books since we started, and every single one is passed through our hands. We check everyone to make sure that everything is fine. We're very rigorous with because sometimes if there's an issue with how they're being packed in boxes when we receive them, because they're wire bound, they can sort of move a little bit. And if we think that there's slightly crease cover or whatever, that goes to one side. So we check every single book, everything from our website. I sign and usually pop a little note in as well, and pop in a bookmark, and then we do the postage, and then one of us will go to the post office and post it. So it all comes from
a SME success story, like a small medium enterprise success story for both you and Brett. Like I just think you guys are amazing. Final question. What changes would you like to see in the industry in the next few years? Like, what would you like to see change more?
I would like to see a move away from floral foam, because that has been particularly picked out as being environmentally unfriendly. I think it's going to take legislation before that actually happens, because there's still a huge reliance on it within the funeral flower sort of sector. I would like that to happen. I would like there to be more support for British, UK and for Irish flower farmers, because at the moment the flower farmers that I talk to, they have to make it work themselves. The subsidies that apply to farming, agricultural farming, do not apply to flower farming. There is no help for them whatsoever. So I think everybody should really support their local flower farmers and their growers if they can. But also don't forget that companies who grow in Africa do a lot of good work out there for their their people, and
the communities.
We will always need to have flowers that come in. So I just hope the industry doesn't get too divided between we must only have UK and we must only have imported. There is room for them both. So I think we should come together and just try and make this a more sustainable, eco-friendly industry.
Yeah, absolutely, because it is from nature's where our industry has come, and that's where we want to stay, and we want to support our eco planet, you know. Sue, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this chat with you. I am going to put in the comments here on YouTube and on the video, Jago Publishing .co.uk, is it?
That's the one. Yep.
Publishing. I will have it in the video here, and it'll be in the comments as well underneath if anyone is interested in buying Sue's book. Connect with her, Sunflower Sue, on Instagram, and
Instagram on Facebook, and I will always try and answer any queries. If I don't answer them, just because I haven't seen it, but you know, please do drop me a line or a message about anything. People do, it's great to sort of you know,
and I can vouch for that, because I know some of our students have her head wrecked sending her questions, and she answers all of the questions, and exactly as she says, if she hasn't answered the question, it's because she hasn't seen it. So just send her a little prompt and say, you know, particularly around Chelsea or around the World Cup or around competitions, and she's up to her eyes and doing other stuff. So if she hasn't answered your question, just send her a little nudge, because Sue, you are amazing. You're so supportive of anyone within the industry, and we really are lucky. We're lucky to have you here, but we're lucky to have you representing our industry and telling everybody what is going on at the time.
Well, thank you, and to you as well. I always have massive respect for yourself and Jeanette and everything that you do. This is what we need. We need people who love it and enthusiastic about it to share the joy. Share the joy, absolutely. And on that note, we will end it off. And thank you so much if you've watched this far as now. Thank you for having me. Thank you for watching, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel and keep up to date with all the latest things that's happening. Thank you.